It looks like we're live. Let me zoom out just a little bit there. Welcome to another Pittsburgh Hockey Now live chat here on the National Hockey Now YouTube network. I tried to include Facebook on this one, but I couldn't. I can't quite get the camera angle right today. I'm playing with it and all kinds of fun stuff. So, obviously, you're a little verklempt. You're uptight. Penguins are winless in 5. I say a 5-game losing streak. I'm old school. When you lose in overtime, that's a loss to me. Not to the NHL, where it's just not a win. Talk about the sign of 2022, huh? So we're going to talk a little bit about that 5-game winless streak. I'm one of only a couple of people who have been in all 5 locker rooms, talking to the players after each one, before and after, and Mike Sullivan. I got a really great answer from Mike Sullivan on Monday, actually, and there's someone out in the hallway just talking right outside my door. A little bit irritating, but always we're gonna do your live chats are included. I know what you want to talk about, and that's kind of why I didn't want to do this today, because I know you want to steer right into the Brian Dumoulin skid. And how do I tell you? And by the way, you can see the board behind me. Wait. There. Number 1 is Brian Dumoulin. I know what you want to say. And how do I tell you that you're a little bit right, but, a lot wrong? How do I explain that there is some truth to the fact that Brian Dumoulin isn't playing great, but he is not nearly as bad? I mean, look, he had a bad 4-game road trip out west. He got walked in Edmonton and, wasn't great against Calgary either, and some turnovers against Seattle. These things all did occur. He was just, he was fine on Tuesday night, but because he had bad games leading up to it, he's now the scapegoat. So how do I tell you that he's had some bad games? And how do I tell you that he needs to pick up his play, but not agree with you that he needs to be launched into the sun? That is kind of where we're at with all of this. Oh, crap. Hang on. There we go. Hey, people. Yeah, batteries and dry erase board. There I am, huh? Someday I'll figure all of this out. Here, there's the logo. How's that? It's even better looking than I am. Let me go back to me. What's this? Oh, split screen. Oh, here's the split screen. You can see the batteries and me, because I'm a moron. So how do I tell you that, A, I'm a moron, but B, Brian Dumoulin is not the worst of the Pittsburgh Penguins' problems. It feels like a lot of you want to make him the central focus, right? It feels like a lot of you want to be like, oh, if they just got rid of Brian Dumoulin, well, trade him, which is always funny to me. Because trade him always is the second sentence in he's terrible, trade him. Remember, if he's terrible, who else is going to want him? So let's try to, and I hope that you come to me for context and you come to me for some information and insights. Brian Dumoulin is I think he's going to be fine, actually. If you want my God's honest opinion, I think he was playing his way into game shape this season. I think that the Penguins forwards have been so irresponsible with the puck. I mean, absolutely brutal with the puck. They have put him in even worse situations. So, that's why he's been walked several times, because he's, in a position where a forward has full transition, full speed, a run right at him. There aren't many defensemen in the NHL who are going to look good in that situation. So a good chunk of Dumoulin's struggles is actually on the Penguins forwards. That's just how it goes. And another chunk would be Chris Letang's poor puck management this season. Letang is part of that crew. Number 2, turnovers are number 3 on the big board behind me. Letang has been part of that crew that's been very careless with the puck. Going back to the Montreal game a few weeks ago, honestly, the days have just been blending in one to the next for me. Each town looks the same to me, the movies and the factories. When your defensive partner is handing the other team the puck and you're kind of caught in that no man's land because you didn't expect to have to be defending in that moment. And bear in mind, I'm not excusing some of Brian Dumoulin's poor play because he's also, a chunk is on him as well. But I watched Twitter last night. I watched Twitter this morning, and it is frustrating because any player, I can take 2 or 3 games and find 3 examples why he's terrible. From Sidney Crosby to Connor McDavid to Brian, I can rip apart any game and say, see? And that sort of populist sentiment always kind of drives me nuts. So I hope you know where I'm coming from. I have no idea what that means, this old helmet. I'm not even going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But let's see here. Brian says, in football terms, it looks like the Pens are playing a soft zone or prevent defense in their own end. I don't know if I would agree with that. They're just making mistakes. Boston last night got a deflection in the third period. They scored a 6-on-5 goal. I mean, literally knocked the puck out of midair in the slot. It wasn't like the Penguins gave Taylor Hall space, right? It was just one of those things where the Bruins did it right. Now, how they got to 3 goals, that's largely on the Penguins for those just ghastly turnovers. Really ghastly. I for the life of me, I do not remember a stretch of Penguins hockey to begin a season or even at midseason where the puck management has been as poor. I don't remember any stretches. This is beginning to feel, and this is kind of where hopefully I can bring a little bit of clarity to you, a little bit of insight. The locker room is getting beat up. They're starting to feel a little bit beat up. Sidney Crosby speaking in hushed tones last night. I gave Sid a softball question. Full disclosure. I mean, it wasn't as softball as some other people, but I'm going to stay in my own lane and let them, do their own thing. But I asked Crosby if, at least for the first couple of periods or, for 30 minutes there in the middle, if he felt like they were doing good things and taking a step forward and were able to play with the puck and in the low zone and simplify all the things that they have talked about. And Sid went straight to the penalties at the end of the second period. Didn't really even acknowledge the good things. He kind of did later. We did a couple of good things, but his penalty, Jeff Petry's penalty, really put them on their heels in the third period. And that's kind of, so they did not have a good feeling. Despite scoring 5 goals and despite, I think, at least for the entirety of the second period and probably the last half of the first period, playing very much how they wanted to play. I mean, it was still October, early November hockey, but it was still kind of how they want to play. But they didn't leave with a good feeling because they gave it all away. They balled it up, they gift wrapped it, and they threw it to the Bruins because of those mistakes. Logan asks, hey, what are your thoughts on having Raquel on the second line instead of the first line? I just felt that the depth was a lot better having Raquel on Crosby's line and Rust with Malkin. I mean, you can't go wrong And I think the Penguins coaches know that. I think you're going to see all season long, every few games, they flip. Just to keep everybody a little bit fresh, just to keep everybody kind of on their toes just a little bit with that. I mean, look, Rust was great with Crosby last night. Was that bad? And Raquel was good with Malkin. So don't, I know everyone wants to start rearranging every little detail, and everyone kind of fixates on one. If they just did this one detail, everything would be better. That, Logan, is not any of one of the details that is any sort of a problem. Both guys are going to score on both lines. There's really, there's really no downside to flipping those guys. Let's see here. Hey Dan, how you been? Out of the loop for a few months. I've been pretty good. Yeah, I appreciate everybody logging on. Do me a favor, like and share the video for me. I'm going to turn my mic down just a hair. It looked like it was a little bit hot. You guys can always tell me that too. So I'm looking at the board behind me, Brian Dumoulin. I'm going to call him right now just he is a GOAT, but he's not the GOAT that y'all want to make him out to be, so we're going to kind of let him float a little bit as a scapegoat for right now. He does have to be better, but he's not as bad as Twitter is making him out to be. Tristan Jarry, Jarry wasn't great on Tuesday night, but I sometimes want to just carry around a billy club and smack some people. I especially went on our Facebook wall today. Never read the comments, Dan. Never read the comments. What was I thinking? Especially Facebook. I don't know what it is, but you have to check your brain to comment on Facebook. Lord knows, I have no idea. I don't know where some of you all come from on Facebook. But Tristan Jarry was a huge scape. I said Jarry was a bad goalie. Really? I mean, Linus Ullmark gave up 5 goals on 24 shots, and you don't hear Bruins fans just corkscrewing the guy the next day. Do you? Good Lord. Tristan Jarry is just fine. Tristan Jarry is a 2-time all-star goalie. Tristan Jarry will get a hefty new contract next summer because he's a good goalie. Knock it off. Stop it. Stop it. Bad fans. Jarry is not a GOAT, shouldn't even be on the scapegoat list. So I just wanted to kind of just put that out there. I do have some pictures of Tristan Jarry. Where's Jarry? Where's Jarry? There's Casey. There's his old mask. There's Jarry's old mask. Okay, now that you've seen Tristan Jarry. Our Facebook wall was full of Tristan Jarry is a terrible goalie. Mike Sullivan should be fired. I mean, just the respect now. I just some of the dumbest stuff I've seen. I guess I upset a lot of people when I said Tristan Jarry wasn't a terrible goalie. A bunch of people logged off immediately. I'm sorry, this is an anti-stupid zone. If you step in here, you be fans, I be media, I give you the inside scoops, but I'm not going to entertain foolish opinions. I just can't. I can't do it. Okay. What else is behind me? Okay, the turnovers. This is really, I think, the crux of the Pittsburgh Penguins' problem. And I think it's bedeviling Mike Sullivan. I think it's bedeviling Sidney Crosby. And there isn't a great explanation as to why. The only thing you can say is it's a mindset amongst the team. They scored a bunch of goals early in the season, and I talked with Jeff Carter about this in Calgary after that 4-1 loss. And it was actually kind of nice because Jeff never talks to the media. I mean, he's taken over that Phil Kessel role, right? Where, when he speaks, it's kind of big news. And the Penguins PR in Calgary said, okay, who do you want to talk to? I said, I want to talk to Jeff Carter. And people laughed. And I'm like, wait, what? Why? But Jeff gave me a few minutes. And And the admission was, we did the story the next day, that in fact scoring 6 goals in 4 games to begin the season did warp the Penguins' thinking a little bit. From that moment on, they were trying to score 6 goals. And when you try to score 6, you're playing that high wire act. You're playing the high-risk game. You're trying to play on the rush instead of just getting it into the corner and grinding it out and getting it to the net, getting those greasy goals to open the game up. That's what they did in the beginning of the first few games of the season. They got some of those greasy goals, which then opened the game up. After that, they tried to play that open game, and that doesn't work. It's if you want to make that football comparison, Logan, it would be like it used to be in football. You had to run the ball to open up the passing game. Same thing in hockey now, where you have to get in the greasy areas, the tough, the battle areas. Then that opens up the game. And the Penguins were trying to play an open game before they opened it up. Turnovers result because they were trying to make pretty plays and stick handle around guys, and as Rob Scuderi and Brooks Orpik called it a decade ago, globetrotter hockey. They were trying to do that, and it doesn't work, especially in today's age with the structure. Every team is structured. You're gonna get walloped if you do that. That's my only insight as to the turnovers, because I think I wrote about this a little bit when I walked into that locker room in Seattle. First of all, I hate Seattle. Not the team. Team is fine. The city. Oh my God, do I hate Seattle. If I ever go back to Seattle, it will be under full protest. I will go to Winnipeg in February. I would go to Moscow in January before I go back to Seattle. And if you want, I'll whine about it later. The walk, the 25-minute walk from what they call the monorail. Basically like RT, it's a nice train that takes you into downtown. 25-minute walk to the arena. All right, I'd like a closer stop, but not every city, look, Pittsburgh doesn't have one to the airport, so be it. Nothing was open. It wasn't that businesses were closed. Businesses were out of business. Drugstores and hotels, everything boarded up. For 20 minutes, I'm walking through downtown Seattle looking at plywood and homelessness and dirt and garbage. Oh, if I ever go back to Seattle, and if you follow me on Twitter, you saw my hotel room. Anyway, when I walked into the locker room in Seattle following that 3-1 loss, Sidney Crosby is sitting there expressionless. Brian Rust is sitting there expressionless. Marcus Pettersson, P.O. Joseph, they are all just, I don't want to say white as a ghost, but it had that feeling. It had that shell-shocked, what the hell just happened? What are we doing? I don't understand. Surprise, confusion. It had that look to it. And it caught me off guard. No kidding. I went in with a list of questions I wanted to ask a few guys and talk to a few guys about some things. And holy moly, just walking into that situation, everything's out the window. Like, what do I ask these guys now? One of these days, I'm just going to go Chris Farley and be like, yeah, you remember that goal they scored against you? That sucked, didn't it? And that's just going to be my question. I'm doing that someday. Probably my last day. Because the Penguins will usher me out, both arms behind my back, and dump me on the sidewalk. So there is a bit of confusion and shock in the Penguins room. Sidney Crosby's voice, if you watch the video here on the National Hockey Now YouTube channel, you saw him, he's not speaking with that confident tone that he normally speaks to us with. He's speaking with that uh-oh tone. If the Penguins lose tonight in Buffalo, and Buffalo's playing really well, these young, scrappy teams in the Eastern Conference, Buffalo, New Jersey, Ottawa, even Philadelphia, the decimated Flyers are scrappy and adding points. It's the Penguins, it's the Capitals, it's the Maple Leafs who are struggling in the Eastern Conference. Take that for what you will. If the Penguins lose to Buffalo on Wednesday night, it's going to have that real feeling that permeated everything back in November of 2018. You'll remember that was following the West Coast trip. The Penguins had a 10 or 11 game winless streak. And everyone just, for a while, people were throwing out the platitudes. We have to keep with it. We have to stick to our game. We have to get to our game. We have to play simple. We have to play hard. We'll be fine. And eventually, Jim Rutherford kind of snapped, traded Carl Hagelin for Tanner Pearson. Remember that ill-fated deal? Ron Hextall won't react quite in the same emotional way I think Jim Rutherford reacted back then. But make no mistake, Brian Burke and Ron Hextall walk side by side. And Berkey has a little bit of that fire where he'll start to nudge Hextall and say, let's get going here. We have to do something. I'm not saying he'll pressure him into a move, but I think he would certainly open the door for one. The Penguins have to win a game here because they've got Toronto and Montreal coming up on the road where they have been obviously very bad. The win in Columbus, where Columbus is kind of brutal this year, notwithstanding. The Penguins dropped a real crummy one in Montreal a couple of weeks ago. So you can't. I don't think you can. I don't think you can take for granted any wins right now for the Penguins. Tage Thompson had a hat trick and 3 assists the other night for Buffalo. I mean, they're playing well. And the Penguins being on the second of a back-to-back, this is going to be a very difficult game for them. I'm going to get back to the live chat here. I want you to like and comment and share and do all of that other happy, fun stuff. Let's see here. Has P.O. Joseph shown enough defensively to swap with Dumo? LT, you know what? I saw that on Twitter and from some prominent people. I think I've established myself as somebody who is favorably disposed to giving P.O. Joseph positive coverage. How's that for some verbal gymnastics? I like P.O. I want him to succeed. I won't give him a free pass on anything. I just like the guy. I think he brings some personality and some freshness to the Penguins locker room, and I think he brings some skills to the ice. To the Dumoulin-specific question, LT, no, not yet. There's a couple reasons why. One, P.O. is still playing sheltered minutes. They are not throwing him into the deep end of the pool. They did in Vancouver. Asked Mike Sullivan about it, and Sullivan didn't tap dance, but he kind of gave me a long answer. I had to go back through and kind of pull out the nuggets. What they did in Vancouver when they put P.O. with Chris Letang was to add some offense. Obviously, they knew Brian Dumoulin wasn't going to add offense, and they wanted to kind of do what they used to do with Matheson and Letang and create that bit more dynamic top pairing. However, in the process, P.O. had to defend against Vancouver's top lines, and I don't think he showed well in some of the hard defensive battles against good players. I thought he got bullied at the net a little bit. On one shift sticks in my mind, and I took notes on it. He got his body in the right position, and the Canuck just kept going to the net with or without P.O. in his way. So from that standpoint, that's what Brian Dumoulin brings. That same Canuck doesn't run over Brian Dumoulin quite like that, because Dumoulin is just a much bigger guy and stronger and knows how to play in that situation. So in some facets of the game, LT, what you're asking makes sense, and I've noodled the same thing. I've thought about it like, okay, what if they did that and then put Dumoulin and Ruda together? How would that fit? Or Dumoulin with Petrie. Unfortunately, it doesn't. PO just isn't right now meant to play 25 minutes against the opponent's top line. And I don't want to beat up PO in any way. I think he's been good and getting better this season. Actually, where's PO? Where's PO? Here. Stare at PO instead of me. With PO, if you watch him, oftentimes he's much better in the second period and into the third period than he is in the first period. There's still a feeling out process in his game. I attribute it, and this is only my gut feeling, not anything he's told me. My gut feeling is that, in fact, he gets more confident each game he plays. He feels his way into it. I don't think he starts the games confident and assertive. And I think each game he sort of earns that in his own mind. So in the second period and the third period, he's better. I think PO is showing he's an NHL defenseman. I don't know if they'll eventually trade him, keep him, trade Ty Smith. I don't know where all of that goes. I'm not sure the Penguins know. I'm not sure Ron Hextall can really know. I know Hextall probably knows what he wants to do with 9 NHL defensemen. But what you want to do and what your opponents, in this case rival GMs, allow you to do are two very different things. So I don't know. Here, you know what? I'll tell you a quick story about PO. And I'm talking a little bit out of school. This is kind of off the record locker room stuff. I don't think he'll mind this story. I'm kind of chatting with him yesterday. We were just talking about hockey and skates and other nonsense. And Drew O'Connor came into the locker room because Drew O'Connor, actually this was Monday. Yeah, this was Monday. So O'Connor comes into the locker room and sits down, and the media swarms Drew. And Drew has like an accidental frohawk. I mean, his hair is just, and PO is just trying to get his attention without saying a word. Like, PO's leaning into it with just that big PO smile, just staring at O'Connor. It's like, look at his hair. Look at his hair. Like he stuck his finger in a light socket, and he's just enjoying the hell out of this, that O'Connor is talking to the media with his hair looking like hell. And it was just a funny moment. Those two have been teammates now for a few years, and they're pretty close. It was just one of those fun moments I thought you might enjoy, because I enjoyed kind of being a little bit, a fly on the wall for it as well. But that's PO. He kind of brings some of that camaraderie to the room, and you need a few guys like that on your team. Okay. Logan also asked, do I see Ty Smith making it to the NHL anytime soon? Not unless Chris Letang were to be injured, or Jeff Petrie were to be injured, on LTIR. That's the only way Ty Smith is getting to the NHL without a trade. It just is, because PO's playing well enough to stay, and Ty's game was a bit of a mess in the defensive zone. Neutral zone, too, if I'm being, brutally honest. Ty was very good in the offensive zone, but not so good in the other two zones of the ice. So, he had to work on that down in Wilkes-Barre. I can't tell you if or when he gets to the NHL this season. I do know the Penguins think he's an NHL defenseman. Penguins management thinks he's an NHL defenseman. I do know that much. But when there's no room at the inn, what are you going to do? Brian, Penn's season goes in cycles. They play a defensive gritty game that leads to offense, which leads them to trying to run and gun, which leads to turnovers, that they start to tighten it up, and it starts all over again. Very, That is very much true. I think that's a lot of teams, right? The National Hockey League season is ridiculously long. I have absolutely no idea why they have to play 82 games. I don't. Here's a funny thing. The ratings were like 20% higher for the COVID season, the 56-game season. 25% across the board. Because the season was shorter, they played opponents that people recognized and knew. There was a rhythm to the schedule. The back-to-backs and the 2 and sometimes 3 game sets. People loved it. The ratings reflected it. And I won't tell you which NHL official told us 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, that they were going to keep that kind of schedule. Not 56 games, but the sets and the division heavy sort of opponents. Somebody, there's like 4 people who would get to make that decision. One of those 4 told us, and they bailed on it. That or the person was screwing with us. I don't know. There is, but to the point of the season going in such long cycles, look, the players are bored by mid-season, and then they tighten it up when the playoffs kind of get into sight. And it seemed like, look, the Washington Capitals kind of suck right now too. So does Toronto, because these are teams that know they're good enough. They're playing for April hockey, May hockey, not October hockey. And so it is a little bit tougher to bring your best game, to bring your intensity in October and November when the consequences seem to be a little bit lessened. UTAN. Oh, I assume that means, yeah. I used to date a girl from Uniontown, and she got so mad at me. I used to call it Tiny Town. Anyway, do we see Poulin in tonight instead of O'Connor? I don't think so. I think Drew O'Connor gets a couple or a few games. Actually, I think you might see Poulin and O'Connor in the lineup. I don't know that Ryan Poehling has done enough recently to guarantee himself a sweater. I think he's been one of those players a bit culpable for the poor puck management. I think, Archibald and McGinn the last 2 games have been very good. I can't say that Ryan Poehling is entirely without blame or has been a net positive. I think in a lot of cases he's been a net negative. And this is after a very good start to the season. I don't quite know what I was grading Poehling very well through preseason and in the first handful of games. Graded him very well. I began to openly wonder, geez, if he plays this well, does that kind of make Teddy Blueger expendable? I don't think I would say that today. Now, Poehling could turn it around tonight and, really have a great game and go forth. But that's one of those things. I think we're seeing Teddy Blueger's value come through. Now, can Sam Poulin take the 4th line role with Archibald and McGinn? I kind of want to see it. I didn't like Poulin with Kapanen and Heinen, but with Archibald and McGinn, those 3 guys would probably grind the crap out of the Buffalo Sabres. Probably just grind them, which is all you want from your 4th line. Get the puck in deep, grind it for a couple of cycles, get the first line on the ice in the offensive zone. That's a victory, 10 of 10 times. A few times the 4th line will get a goal before the first line gets on. A few more times the first line gets the goal. Or the first line keeps the puck in the offensive zone. Now the Malkin line hops on the ice in the offensive zone. Now you've got 3 shifts in the offensive zone, 2 with lots of talent. That's when you tilt the ice. That's when you make the other team begin to sweat. That's when the momentum really builds and you feel that goal coming. And a fourth line can set all of those dominoes in motion. So do I kind of like to see Poulin? Yeah, in that fourth line role. I think I would. All right, keep those comments and the chats coming. Let's see here. Am I missing anything? Let me look at the board behind me here. We've gone over Brian Dumoulin, Tristan Jarry. We've gone over the turnovers. Let's talk about Jeff Petrie. Jeff Petrie. I thought I had some photos of... There he is. There's Jeff Petrie. I need to take a few drinks here. That's only Diet Pepsi, by the way. Even though I've got this bottle of tequila on my desk that is... It was a gift for my 39th birthday. If you know how old I am, it's why it's half empty and I've never opened it. It's been evaporating for too many years. Anywho, Jeff Petrie. Petrie might be right behind Brian Dumoulin in that scapegoat category. Except that Petrie is really digging his hole with these minor penalties. If he stopped taking the minor penalties, and the problem with the minor penalties, look, if you get a roughing minor, oftentimes those are sometimes good penalties. They're born of emotion and they're born of the fight, and your team wants to kill it off because it picks them up, in some instances. Petrie is taking hooking, holding, tripping penalties that he doesn't have to take, or that he has to take because he's behind the forward. Someone commented the other day, Dan, stop calling Jeff Petrie elite. Well, as a second-pairing defenseman, Jeff Petrie is an elite second-pairing defenseman. I also told you, when did the Penguins acquire him? Was it July or August they swung that trade, Matheson to Montreal for Petrie? Or even early September. I don't remember. Regardless of that, remember I told you then it's going to take Petrie until December to integrate, to be in the flow. Last night, prime example. Petrie sees Malkin coming up the wall with the puck, and he just bolts to the net. He goes flying past Malkin, expecting a little chip pass and a scoring chance in the slot. Now, if Malkin reads Petrie, the Penguins do have a scoring chance. If Petrie reads Malkin, Petrie hangs at the blue line, and the Bruins don't get a turnover, transition, and I think they scored on that play. So who's at fault? Neither one, really. Neither Petrie nor Malkin is really at fault. It's just one of those things. It's the communication. It's the, that game the Penguins play. That Mike Sullivan, the reason he has lasted for 517 games, the reason he's won a couple of Stanley Cups, the reason he's not lost a team is because he doesn't take the stick out of their hands. Look, Darryl Sutter in Calgary is thought to be one of the best coaches in the league. There's times when he takes the stick out of players' hands. I'm thinking of Todd McClellan and Pete DeBoer and some of these guys who are thought to sometimes micromanage or control the game. Adam Oates was a prime example. Drove players nuts, as a head coach because, you need to be in this spot, do exactly this thing, and hockey really is such a mental game with flows and ebbs, and you can't script it. That's what makes Mike Sullivan, one of the things that makes Mike Sullivan a very, very good head coach. But when you add a new piece like Jeff Petrie who's going to play to that style and that game, you're going to have these sort of miscommunications. I don't know what to tell you about that. Petrie's biggest problems have been, I think, the penalties. And last night, another bad penalty makes him look worse. He's had some very good moments. He's had some very good offensive, pushes, and he's joined the rush, and he's jumped into the play to keep the play alive. The problem is, and this is the same thing that was happening with Brian Dumoulin, when a lot of fans start to get uptight or see some bad plays, now you focus on that. Now you're watching everything. And you don't see the 3 good plays. You see the 1 bad play, and you fixate, and you focus on that. It's confirmation bias, right? You see that 1 play out of 5, and you're like, well, see, he's terrible. And that's kind of, I guess, why I exist, right? Is to balance that 1 play with the other 4, 2, 3, 4. Petrie has not been great. He's had his bad moments. He will be fine, and that's kind of why I was always cautioning, don't judge him until the integration happens. Look, Sergei Gonchar took into December or January. I hate to trigger warning. Remember how bad Jack Johnson was the first few months as a Penguin? I mean, he was really bad his first few months. They acquired Marcus Pettersson in December. Jack Johnson and Marcus Pettersson were actually plus players for the rest of the season. Those things get overlooked because the sample size kind of, casts the die, and no one wants to kind of say, yeah, you know what, I was wrong, or I jumped to conclusions. No one says that. You just keep looking for the confirmation bias, and Petrie's going to have to overcome that. He's going to have to score a few big goals, and everyone will forgive him, and he'll be just fine, kids. Don't worry about that. Let's see here. Ty Smith has been really good in the AHL, second leading scorer. Okay, cool. I haven't had a chance. I mean, that West Coast trip beat the tar out of me. I will freely admit that. The time zone changes and kind of being on my own out there in terms of coverage, it kind of knocked the snot out of me. By the way, I have never in my life had a dish that was too hot to eat spice-wise. I mean, I can handle spice. I went to number 1 Korean hangover food spot. That was what the billboard or the little sandwich board said. And I got what's called dumple. It's this red sort of stew. And they said, "Oh, how hot do you want it? 1 to 5?" And I said, "Give me a 4." She looked at me. She giggled. Said, "Oh, that's really hot." I said, "I know. Trust me. I can handle spice. I mean, look, I can eat 5 of 5 Thai food. I can handle it." When I got this stuff, dear Lord, it knocked me completely. And this is in Vancouver. I couldn't eat it. I probably ate about that much of a bowl that was that deep. And because there's a bit of a homeless problem in Vancouver, and I'm feeling guilty that I just spent $10 or $12 on this stew, and I'm like, oh geez, maybe I should just give it to somebody. I'm like, wait a second, what did they do to me? I'm going to punish them like this. So I had to throw it all out, coughing, and my throat was, I guess it just black pepper or whatever they put in it. My God, it was brutal, but I digress. There was a point to that. Anyway. Wouldn't hurt to learn to play a 60-minute game either, or at least 50 minutes. Seems we play hot for a period here and there, then rely on legacy and luck to win. Bad formula. Yeah, I think John. Hey, John. Good to see you. I only planned to do like 30 minutes today. We're already at 43, and I haven't even gotten to the other half of my board yet. You can see the board behind me. It's part of the mindset that's causing the turnovers as well. I don't think the Penguins are bringing their lunch pail yet. I don't think they're dialed into this season. I think this is all part of the calibration. I think this is part of being a veteran team that knows this is a marathon, not a sprint. Now, are they being a little bit too lax? Yeah, they are. And I don't think you can fix that overnight. I think that takes a few games to dial in. But they will be okay. What you have to worry about, and maybe I should write about this, you look at the spunky teams in the Eastern Conference, New Jersey playing out of their skates, and the Sabres playing above their heads, and Philadelphia gaining points, and the Islanders don't suck all of a sudden. If those teams stay in playoff contention, that means somebody has to be out of the playoffs. The Penguins, the Capitals, those would be the two teams most likely to be in trouble. So you have to keep an eye on those young teams. And Buffalo obviously wouldn't knock the Penguins out of the top three in the Metro because they're in the Atlantic, but they could certainly take a wild card spot, and you could see 5 Atlantic Division teams make it, or 4 instead of 5 Metro Division teams. So it's going to be a very difficult road for the Penguins. I think they're really going to have to. I don't know that it begins tonight in Buffalo. I don't know that they've hit rock bottom, although giving up that lead to Boston kind of felt like rock bottom. I don't know that they have, in fact, hit rock bottom yet. You and I will both wait and see. This is why I don't bet big money. I bet a little bit, tiny amounts, but not big money. Let's see here. Alex Nylander is the leading scorer for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I really need to hop up there for a game. Why hasn't Nylander been called up? Tom, I can answer that question very easily for you. Nylander at the NHL level is not the same guy you're watching at the Wilkes-Barre level. Nylander gets a lot of points outside the dots. He gets a lot of points he's not going to get in the NHL. I specifically, because I was curious, I wanted to know the answer to that question. Why isn't he in the NHL? Because I got great reports from him or about him last spring after the Penguins traded him for Sam Lafferty. And so I keyed in on him in the preseason, and it wasn't there. It just really wasn't, Tom. He was playing outside the dots. He was kind of playing a perimeter game. He didn't do those things you want to see from somebody who is going to make your team. He wasn't one of the best 14 or 15 forwards. He really wasn't. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me. I think he's just going to be one of those guys who piles the points at the AHL level. He'll probably bounce around for the rest of his career. Every couple or few years, he'll get a new shot somewhere else. Somebody will try to tinker with him or think they need, some scoring depth, and that will be, unfortunately, probably the end of the road for him. Never say never. The Penguins had a guy named Randy Robitaille who was that guy who turned it on when he got his big chance with the terrible Generation Next Penguins, in that kind of post-Yager Penguins era when they had no money whatsoever and they were grabbing minor leaguers left and right. Randy Robitaille was that guy. And then Robitaille played for Ottawa and I think Nashville too. Had a little bit of a run in the NHL. He figured enough out to play at the big level. Okay. So, I see more people joining. We've been on for 40 minutes. Do me a favor. Make sure you like the channel. Make sure you subscribe to it. Like the video. And if you know what? And if you give me a thumbs down, I fully respect that as well. The rule here is you got to tell me why. Without 4-letter words. Without the 4-letter words. All right, so what else do we have? What else do I want to get to? I guess we've talked a bit about P.O. Joseph. He's on my board. What's number 6? Oh, the third and fourth lines. I guess I grazed that earlier. I didn't dive into that. Third and fourth lines. Let me see if I've got any cool pictures. Yeah, there's Drew. I can't tell who's in the middle. I see O'Connor. I see Heinen. Who is in the middle? You guys have better eyes than I do. It's always kind of weird for me seeing pictures of these guys unless they're standing there in front of me. I haven't a clue who that is. He's short. Is that Puustinen? No, it's not Puustinen. I have no idea who that is. Anyway, Penguins' third and fourth lines. I'm going to kind of hit the third line a little bit. And we talk about... Someone saying that's Zucker? Is it? That does not look like Jason Zucker to me. Hang on. It doesn't look like Zucker to me. But if you all tell me that's Zucker, I do know what he looks like. We've met. It looked like Brad Marchand with a beard. The angle of his face there. Anywho. Owen Krebs is like, hey, Zucker is in the middle. Owen, our Vegas guy. Owen, you need to do a few of these. Owen is kicking butt out there in Vegas. And I guess it was a year ago, Owen and I sat in this very office here. And I made the phone call because it just wasn't working with our beat writer in Las Vegas. He was a great guy, Hall of Famer out there in Vegas. But the technology and the different things you have to do in a Hockey Now franchise compared to, say, a newspaper, it can be night and day. It's like driving a NASCAR. If, the newspaper is the NASCAR, you have your set, things, and it's a little bit slower. Hockey Now is like a Formula One car. You're constantly pushing buttons, pulling levers, worried about, pile of technology. You're turning right and left, and it's just an entirely different immersive experience. And our beat writer out in Vegas just was like, nah, this is not for me. So Owen was our intern. And then Owen was our Vegas beat writer. Now Owen's living out in the desert. And Owen, I'm coming to see you in January. And we are going to the Little Ailey Inn up in Rachel. I've been to the casinos enough times. I'm going to Rachel again. Anywho. Oh, they're saying look at the helmet on Zucker. Oh, you know what? I didn't even look at the number. See? Let me look at this again. Is that 16 or 36? Anyway, I'll take Yinz's word for it that's Jason Zucker. Anywho, third and fourth lines. Last couple of games, McGinn and Archibald have in fact looked pretty good. I think the first 6 or 7 games, there's no question they were invisible. They were not doing the little things that you need third and fourth liners to do. You need that line to be gritty, grimy, grinding, and Archibald and McGinn were not really providing that for the Penguins lineup. Jeff Carter on the third line. I'm beginning. It's a tough call. There went my cap. Because Carter is talented, Carter is a finisher. Is he your third-line center with Danton Heinen and Kasperi Kapanen? The line seems to me to be a bit too marshmallowy. They're meant to score, but I don't think they're good enough defensively, which puts more pressure on the Penguins' fourth line. That's fine if your fourth line is really good, but the Penguins' fourth line hasn't been really good. So that slack, that defensive slack that that the Penguins' third line was leaving wasn't being picked up anywhere. You don't want Sidney Crosby being worn down, having to defend the other team's top line every shift. You want to get him away from those guys so that you maximize his effectiveness. That was kind of a problem with the Penguins. In addition to the turnovers, they were not getting enough from the third and fourth lines. Now, look, Heinen had a great start to the season, his first few games, and you can blame me because I was teasing him in Edmonton. Hey, so can you guys score 480 goals this season? Well, way to stick your foot in your mouth there, Dan. They go on a 5-game winless streak following that question. It was a joke, I swear. Or you can blame Danton Heinen's father. Danton's dad was on the Western trip with Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and Seattle. So blame him, not me. Yeah, don't blame the team. Blame, someone wore the wrong hat, wore their bad luck socks. That's the big problem. I don't know quite what to do with the Penguins' bottom six because I believe that there is a potential problem there going forward, that it's not hard enough. It's not defensive enough. That's probably the biggest thing. It's not defensive enough. And I think that could create some issues down the road. I wonder if Jeff Carter slides to the right wing. I wonder a lot of things about trades, and we could see someone from that bottom six traded, to kind of free up space and to kind of create a little bit of a more physical or a more defensive-oriented bottom six. That's kind of where I'm at with that. When Blueger comes back, Carter should drop to the fourth line. See, that's the thing. Carter is a finisher. If you put him on the fourth line, now you're putting a guy who's not great defensively. Carter's not bad defensively. I mean, he's good. But so now you're putting a finisher on your fourth line. Now you're minimizing what Jeff Carter brings to your team. And Teddy Blueger is very good defensively, at least, pre-broken jaw Teddy Blueger. So you're putting him up on a third line, and you're kind of you're hoping to get something out of him, offense, that he's not going to provide a lot of. So if you make that switch, Brian. So if you make that switch, you're kind of putting both players in a position where they're not going to be successful. Make sense? You're kind of changing the paradigm where each player has to do what they're not as good at. That doesn't create balance. That just creates more problems. Okay, that's 56 minutes for me. Holy moly. Okay, I am going to put the last call out there. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So final call for the comments and the questions. I appreciate everybody. It should be a very interesting game tonight. Mike Sullivan is not in trouble. There is 0.0 chance that Mike Sullivan is on the hot seat. You'll see Mike Tomlin fired before you see Mike Sullivan fired. I promise you that. Having said that, the players could be in a bit of trouble. Did you guys know that Jim Rutherford stormed into the Canucks locker room last weekend? Kind of read them the riot act? The story's just coming out of the last couple of days. And, you wonder why they beat Seattle and the Penguins, because Rutherford went in there and said, all right, here's the deal. You start playing better, or I'm going to start trading people. I'm going to start putting you on waivers. I'm going to send you to the minor leagues. I don't care what money you make. And he rattled the players. Apparently the agents' cell phones were buzzing off the hook, and all the agents are calling Jim Rutherford. What did you say to my guy to make him upset? Rutherford kind of got the friction going. And Vancouver then goes on and wins a couple of games, although I think they stunk again last night. I think they lost. I think they had a lead and squandered it again, which would be like the fifth squandered lead in 8 or 9 games for them. Regardless, Rutherford did that in Vancouver, and you might see something to shake up the Penguins a little bit. In my gut, I think their mix. I think the Penguins team, the forwards 1 through 12, is a little bit rich. It's a little bit too much. They're too talented. I mean, as ridiculous as that sounds, and I fully understand the ridiculousness of that statement, but that goes back to the old Herb Brooks adage: I don't want the best 20 guys. I want the right 20 guys. Maybe the Penguins, because of the third and fourth lines, maybe they have to make a change or two to bring a bit more grit. If Brock McGinn can step into a third line role and be a little bit harder, bring some of those intangibles and tangibles that begins to mitigate the problem just a wee little bit as well. But I do think they could improve in that area, which probably, look, if the third and the fourth line starts taking care of the puck, it creates a snowball effect for the top couple of lines where they're playing in the offensive zone, and mistakes are not as severe in the offensive zone as they are trying to enter the zone, which is where the Penguins are getting caught. They're getting too fancy, too cute by half, entering these controlled zone entries. They're trying to stick handle. All of a sudden, the other team has a transition game going. It's 3-on-2. It's 2-on-1. There's trailers, and the Penguins are a little bit too disorganized to pick up their man, and bang, there's a goal. Okay, so I said that was last call. Let's see here. It's like they become too overconfident when they have a good game, which causes them to coast the next game. That's a little bit of that. When we put the pedal to the metal, we are really good, but need to have that workers' mentality. I think you'll see that begin to emerge. Sidney Crosby is going to put his foot down or through this situation. Thanks for the insight. Been slow to get in on the season so far. The rest of the league has been more interesting. J-Plan. I think the Penguins are one of the most interesting teams in the league. I really do. I'm not sure I could have written 100 stories in October about a lot of teams, but I did on the Penguins. Okay, kids, that is it. I have now done 61 minutes. I am done. I'm out. Have fun. Dave Molinari is in Buffalo as we speak. If you want, ask Dave how his hand is. Dave, I'm going to talk out of school. I'm going to pick on Dave a little bit. He has been so much a pleasure to have with Pittsburgh hockey now. But Dave is very detail oriented. He doesn't let anything slip. He is, and I got him a new company credit card. And, it was an American Express card made of metal. So he had to dispose of the old one. Now, when he broke the pair of tin snips, maybe it's time to stop. But Dave didn't stop there. He was going to dispose of this card come hell or high water. So you have to tease Dave a little bit about that. I had my Seattle hotel room where I didn't fear bed bugs because not even the bed bugs would stay there. I had my Seattle hotel room, and Dave has his disposal of the company credit card this morning. Ask him about it. All right, kids. That is it for me. Have fun. Good night, and have a pleasant tomorrow.